Most people think that to get shredded, you have to spend hours in the gym, but I'm going to show you today how I get my clients who are probably very similar to you in that they've got families, a social life, not hours of spare time to spend in the gym, how these guys get shredded just by training 3 times a week and how you can do the same. So why do we train 3 times a week versus say every day? Firstly, recovery. So recovery is absolutely key. Muscle growth actually occurs in between sessions when we're recovering versus in the gym. In the gym, we're breaking down the muscle tissue. Then when we're resting, recovering, that's when it repairs. So we want to make sure that we're giving ourselves time between each session to rest and recover so that that muscle growth is occurring. Versus individuals who are training every single day, say, they're overtraining, right? They're going into every session inflamed, fatigued. They're not able to push themselves as hard in the gym, thus moving less weight, training less intensely, less efficiently. So in the end, even though they're putting in more effort, more time, they're not seeing as good a results as individuals like my clients who are only training 3 times a week. Why it works so efficiently is because of the high frequency. We're hitting every muscle group 3 times a week versus the typical bodybuilder split, maybe hitting it once, maybe twice a week. We're focusing on big compound lifts and we're going into every session, as we said, fresh. So we're able to be really efficient with our training in terms of maximizing that hour in the gym, hitting every muscle group, then giving it a day or two to rest, and then same again. This is gonna basically allow us to build as much muscle as possible due to improving the skill of training by training more frequently, but also by allowing muscles to be broken down, giving it time to recover, and then as soon as we're recovered, bang, straight at it again. So we're getting the most bang for our buck by training more frequently and doing compound exercises. So with regards to fat loss and getting shredded, most of that is going to come from outside of the gym. 90% of that is in the diet. So it doesn't matter if you're spending every hour of the day in the gym. If you're cheating on your diet, not doing your cardio, stuff like that, that is going to dictate what gets you, whether or not, you get shredded, not how long you're spending in the gym. So that allows us to prioritize our things outside of the gym, like family time and social events, getting the same results as individuals who are spending every hour of the day in the gym. So here is a training breakdown of an example of a session that I would do for an individual running a 3 full body split. So we'd start with something like an incline dumbbell press, going into some sort of close grip pull down to work the lats. Then we do a leg press, a big leg compound, going into an RDL to work the posterior chain, then maybe finishing off with a dip, a good compound to hit the tricep and chest, then finishing off with the isolations in terms of hitting your biceps and your side delts. So you see here, we're hitting we're focusing on big compounds and we're focusing on hitting each muscle group at least once in the session. I'd probably aim for doing around 2 to 4 sets depending on where you're starting off in your transformation, how intense and accurate your training is, ranging from reps anywhere to 8 to 20 reps per a set, and then just distributing the volume across the week, and then using, again, a big thing is going to be progressive overload throughout the training, making sure our tempo and range of motion is really good. And then once we've standardized, tempo and range of motion, how we're performing the exercises, then really enforcing progressive overload and intensity. If over the weeks we are losing weight, but getting stronger in the gym, we know we can go for a crazy recomp phase. Like you see with a lot of guys on my page, yes, they've lost a good amount of weight, but they've built a load of muscle so that when they get to the end of that transformation, they just look insane. So as I said earlier, if we want to get shredded, we need to have a good nutritional strategy in place. It doesn't matter how many times a week we're training, if the nutrition is off, we won't get shredded. So we want to make sure we're in a calorie deficit. 2 ways that I like to do that with clients with regards to their food is by either tracking their macros for the more advanced guys or just setting a meal plan with alternative food options for each meal. Very easy to follow, and then you don't have to track all your food every single day. You can just follow the meal plan. Now, with regards to protein intake, we want to be aiming for 2 grams per kilo of body weight. Good examples of protein are chicken breast, turkey mince, beef mince, salmon, whitefish, tuna, whey protein, eggs. These are all good sources of protein that I use with my clients. Now, the rest of our calories we want to distribute between fats and carbs. Carbs, I would prioritize between our pre-workout meal and our post-workout meal, so before and after training. And then I distribute our fats evenly throughout each meal, having as well some before we train. Now, we want to prioritize healthy fats such as avocado, salmon from fish, dark chocolate, coconut oils to cook our foods in. I would also avoid processed foods and liquid calories just because they're not going to be as satiating as sticking to whole foods. Now, we also want to make sure we get 3 litres of water in a day. That's going to help manage satiation, so help keep us full, but it's also going to allow us to maximize training performance, thus building more muscle in the gym. Now, an example of a sort of food plan that I use to get clients absolutely shredded would be something like starting with a breakfast of eggs and sourdough with some veg, then we maybe have a chicken wrap for lunch, followed by some salmon and rice for dinner, and then maybe before bed having some form of Greek yogurt, dark chocolate and berries dessert. So that's like a good structured diet, eating 4 meals a day with high protein, spreading out our meals, which would allow you to get shredded. Now, why these 3 full body sessions a week work so well is because it allows you to have lots of time outside of the gym to enjoy time with your family, your social life, but it's so important that we still have good habits in place for them days off to still maximize our progress and get shredded. So a big thing is we want to maximize recovery so that going into each session, we're feeling fresh. Now, how do we do that? Making sure we're getting 7 to 8 hours of sleep. Again, it's going to help regulate your hunger hormones, so we're way less likely to binge and eat off plan, and it allows us to recover more to maximize that training performance. So when we are in the gym, we're making the most of every single session. If you're going into the gym tired, fatigued because you haven't rested and recovered, then we're not going to be able to get the most out of each session. Now, also NEAT, non-exercise activity thermogenesis. This is basically any exercise that you're doing outside of the gym and cardio and stuff like that. So we want to make sure we've set ourselves a step goal. Now, how I would do this, if you're starting your fitness journey from the beginning now, go onto your Apple Health app, look at your average steps, and I would just start with setting a goal of doing 2,000 more than what you're currently doing. So I'm not expecting you to go and do double, triple what you're doing, just setting a realistic goal slightly above what you're currently doing. Now, a big thing is stress management. Again, similar to making sure we're recovered, we don't want to be stressed. So we want to make sure that we can manage that stress by putting protocols in place like sleeping well, but also looking at things like meditation, journaling, all the things that can help us reduce our stress, because at the end of the day, if we're highly stressed, we're going to have high cortisol levels, which again is going to impact our recovery going into sessions, which we want to manage. Now, active rest days. So on our rest days, we don't want to be sitting around all day doing nothing. I want us to making sure we're getting our steps in, but also doing some sort of low intensity, steady state cardio, whether that be going for a swim, going for a light jog, going for a bike ride, making sure we're still burning calories on those days to help put us in a calorie deficit. So one of the beauties of the 3 days a week training is the idea of consistency is greater than inconsistency, right? So we can consistently dedicate 1 hour 3 times a week to the gym. So we can consistently do that versus saying, right, you need to train 7 days a week. It's not realistic. If we can find a program that we enjoy with the exercise that we enjoy, training 3 times a week consistently over a sustained period of time while managing our diet and putting ourselves in a calorie deficit, that results in long-term results. And that is how you get a physique transformation, finding something that we can consistently stick to. So I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, Oshin, this sounds great. I've only got to train 3 times a week. But where's the proof? Right, so here we have Samir, 46 years old, started at 86 kilos, lost 20 kilos in 6 months, training just 3 times a week. He came to me, and his biggest problems initially that he thought we were going to face were that he had to balance his social and family life with this. So training 3 times a week works absolutely perfect for him. On his rest days, he loved swimming. So on the weekends, he'd go swimming with his family, and then in the week, he'd get some swimming sessions in to hit his cardio. Also, his food. He didn't want to sacrifice going out on the weekend, so we put protocols in place so that he could eat off plan on the weekend, but we would bank calories for the meals out and make sure he expended a lot of calories with swimming. And then Monday through to Friday, we made sure we were on plan, eating that meal plan that I talked about earlier, something very similar to that, based on foods that he enjoyed eating with variety. And we did that for 6 months and he got a result. He's now reversed out of his diet. He's now gained 8 kilos on that over the past 6 months and is looking jacked, enjoying his social life with his family, training hard, still 3 times a week, living his best life. Then we also have Imran here. He lost 16 kilos with me, going from 83 kilos to 67 kilos in just over 4 months. Now, his biggest issue when he started was time. He ran a big business with lots of employees. He had to manage how is he going to get his sessions in. So there was no point in me telling him he's going to have to train every day. Wouldn't be able to stick to it. So we set a 3 time a week full body split. And again, the main thing with him was that accountability. He would have any excuse not to train because he was very busy. So we had to be like, right, 3 times a week minimum. And he stuck to that. He didn't want to do cardio. He said, I don't have time to do cardio. What does that mean? steps in and militant with the diet, not messing that up, ensuring every day he was in a calorie deficit. Again, found a plan that he could stick to, that he enjoyed, then time. After 4 months, consistently losing around 1 kilo a week, look at the result, it speaks for itself. Then we've got Asad, one of my craziest transformations, right? Just under a year, this guy went from 100 kilos to 64 kilos, absolutely shredded. And yes, he only trained 3 times a week. People couldn't believe it, right? Everyone thought, right, this guy must be training every single day in the gym. And don't get me wrong, he spent a lot of time in the gym because he loved it, in terms of we were training 3 times full body, and then he would do cardio sessions on his days off. And again, it was all about that enjoyment, especially when you've got to lose like 36 kilos. You have to enjoy it, especially doing something for a year. If you aren't enjoying it, you're never going to stick to it. Again, that consistency idea. It was better off, especially at the beginning, just doing 3 times a week, losing weight, getting into the gym, falling in love with the process, and then again, it was just time. Similar again, Asad has now reversed out of his diet. He's jacked, walking around at mid 70 kilos, eating 4,000 calories a day. But again, he had to put that shift in, finding out how much we were going to have to lose, get all the way down to 64 kilos, reversing out. And again, he just trusted the process and he enjoyed it, which was the most important thing. So again, that sustainability resulted in that long-term result. Without that, we would have never got there. So if you've made it this far and you're thinking, do you know what? I want to get shredded. I can commit to training 3 times a week, then I can definitely help you. Either drop me a message on Instagram if you're interested in coaching, or fill out the form in the description below and I will get back to you with regards to more information on my coaching and how I can help you achieve a physique transformation.